Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to be looking at the medicine through time paper, specifically at questions 5 or 6, that being ... a statement which you'll get depending on the question. How far do you agree? Explain your answer. So really all this question is asking you to do is what you think about the statement. Do you agree with the statement or do you disagree with the statement? Now this question can give you a total of up to 20 marks, 16 marks for the essay itself, and then 4 marks additionally for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. This question is really the make or break of your exam, so to speak. It carries by far the most weight compared to any other question, which is why in all of the other questions I've been taking away slightly from a fair split of timing per mark. For example, the 4 markers, you want to race through those to be able to give this question 20, possibly 25 minutes to be able to get those 20 marks. You'll see why you need that much time later. Now, when you look at the exam paper, it will be as follows. This is important. At the top, it will say answer either question 5 or 6. Now, it will give you 2 possible questions. Have a quick glance through both. Then think about which one you know more about, which one you are more confident about writing. Then you need to make sure, you might think this would go without saying, but you cross the little box depending on what question you want. Now they tell you the criteria for ticking the box. You need to put a very clear X through it. If you then go through X and change your mind, you need to put a clear line through that X and then re-X question 5. Quite a confusing concept, so be sure on the question before you start it. Now, when we look at the mark scheme, always just looking at that top band, there are a few things which we need. The first thing it states is an analytical explanation is given which is directed consistently at the conceptual focus of the question. Basically, you are explaining how your evidence connects to the question, like any paragraph in history, just explaining what you're writing. Now, big picture, it states coherent, sustained, and logical. You need to follow the same idea throughout. It's going to be 3 very chunky paragraphs. You can't be going, well, I agree, but then I disagree, but I agree, but I still disagree. You need to pick a side of the argument and stick to it. Also states we need accurate and relevant information, which is precisely selected, showing wide-ranging knowledge. So what you want here is good evidence, but from a wide range of dates. If the question gives you multiple time periods, you need to show evidence throughout those time periods. If the question is over 400 years and you only give me a small window of 100 or 200 years, all you are showing me as an examiner is that you know absolutely nothing about half of the question, and that's really going to kind of downgrade you on this mark scheme. And finally, criteria for the required judgment are justified. Your line of argument must be applied to all paragraphs. You must say if you agree, if you disagree, and why at every single opportunity. Now, if you wish to pause the video here, there are 3 potential questions which you could answer. We are going to be going through question 3 together, and you can use question 1 or 2 to do as an example exam practice. So this is the question we're going for. The role of the church was the main reason why there was little change in care and treatment in the years 1250 to 1500. How far do you agree? And then it will give you 2 stimulus points below that, as you can see back here, which they've given me medical training and herbal remedies. But remember, you don't need to use these 2 points. When I was thinking about this question, these weren't the 2 things that popped into my mind that I could write the easiest about, so I didn't go for them. I've written about 3 completely separate points. Now, if we quickly go over here to the big picture structure for this exam, you're going to have 3 paragraphs. Now, the first thing you need to do before anything else is decide if you agree or if you disagree with the statement. And you need to decide that before you even start, because that is going to define the order that you're writing in. Now, paragraph 1, you give your opinion. If you agree, you start with an agree paragraph. If you disagree with the statement, you start with a disagree paragraph. Then in paragraph 2, you would give a counter argument. So if you disagreed, if you feel like you disagree, you go disagree paragraph 1, agree paragraph 2, and then disagree again paragraph 3. So you go back, forth, back. But what is important to mention is that in paragraph 2, if you are going for the full marks, which I'm sure you will be if you're listening to these videos and studying hard, you need to sabotage your counter argument. So once you've said, I agree, on the other hand, some might disagree, you need to tear that argument apart in the last section. I'll go into that in a bit more detail, but that is critical for you to get really 14 or above. Overall, just some top tips before we go into it. You must decide if you agree or disagree at the start and stick to that. That entire idea of big picture structure must be sustained is critical. So decide whether you agree or disagree, stick to it. In the mark scheme, 40% of the marks are going to be for evidence, 60% is going to be explaining. So you need to justify everything you say. And also 4 marks are for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Proofread your work at the end. I'm sure that a very small number of students are actually writing up to the very last second. Use that minute or two where you're mentally exhausted and you can't write anymore to read through and spot those small mistakes, because I promise you there will be 1 or 2, and that is the easiest mark to gain back in the world. And overall structure per paragraph: point, example, explain, link, analyze. Now, an example is similar to evidence, but you just provide a lot more. And the explain and link is kind of categorized together because those are just a brief few sentences before you kind of really get into it in the analysis, which is acting as a mini conclusion at the end of each section. And it needs to link the paragraph and directly compare it to the question statement in that. This bit is kind of where you're going to be getting that 60% of explanation. So if we look at the model answer, I will read through, stopping at each section and explain my thought process to you. So I start out of the gates with my line of argument, my point. I agree with the statement that, add in the statement so the examiner cannot be confused as to whether you're answering the question or not. I agree with the statement that the role of the church was the main reason why there was little change in care and treatment in the years 1250 to 1500. This is because of their influence over education. So I've said that I've agreed with the statement and then given the point as to why I agree. Now I move on to evidence, which is highlighted in green, or example, sorry. In the medieval period, the church was the primary source of education, given the fact that the majority of people could not read or write. Church services and visual depictions were prevalent in society. Furthermore, libraries were owned by the church and monks were responsible for transcribing all texts. As a result, they had complete control over which medical texts were produced and only circulated ideas they supported. Done with the evidence, quickly explaining, therefore the church was responsible for the lack of variety within ideas surrounding medicine, due to those new ideas not aligning with religious views. And then link. Thus, the church's influence over education was a key reason for the lack of change in care and treatment. Now, this last bit acts as a mini conclusion. It saves you from having to write a conclusion at the end where you've kind of forgotten all of your points and your thoughts are a bit more muddled. So we just tag the conclusion onto the end here. In summary, the church's refusal to support and produce texts about new ideas surrounding care and treatment was crucial to limiting progress, as they were the primary form of education. It allowed little room for new ideas to appear and spread, allowing widespread change with regards to medical care and treatment. So as you can see here, the reason that you need to proofread your text at the end of writing it is even with spell check and all the other software I have on my laptop, there are still mistakes. I've just left these in to kind of show you how easy it is to miss them. Then we go to our counter argument. So I said at the start, I agree. On the other hand, some might disagree. Now, I'm not saying I agree with the statement, then I disagree with the statement. I'm saying, on the other hand, some might disagree with the statement that the role of the church was the main reason why there was little change in care and treatment in the years 1250 to 1500. This is because of the importance society placed on book learning. Point done. Book learning, societal importance. This is my counter argument. Due to the fact that the majority of the population in the medieval period were unable to read and write, it meant that being widely read was a sign of intelligence. Due to this, the defining characteristic of a good physician was being widely read instead of having actual experience treating patients. Now, as you can see here, my counter-argument paragraph is a bit weaker. As with most essay questions, you can always have one paragraph that's lacking slightly because the other two are going to kind of do the legwork in getting you the marks. So moving on to explain. Therefore, it was the importance placed on book learning that resulted in a lack of discoveries, and with this, little change in care and treatment arose. So once again, always adding in the words, the phrasing of the question, care and treatment, little change in care and treatment, all there. And link, thus, society's overt focus on books over real-world experience was responsible for limited change. Nevertheless, so I've done all of that, and now I'm just going to sabotage it. I'm going to destroy that counter-argument that I've just made because I don't disagree, I agree, and it's this little sentence that keeps that sustained line of argument. Nevertheless, even though society was over-reliant on book learning, it was the church, bracket monks, who produced these books, can still be seen to shoulder some of the blame in the context for a lack of progress in care and treatment. So all I've said here is yes, book learning is a counter-argument. However, monks made all the books, so the church is still responsible to a degree. In spite of this factor, I still agree. So I'm once again hitting them with my line of argument. I still agree with the statement that the role of the church was the main reason why there was little change in care and treatment in the years 1250 to 1500. This is because of a lack of scientific evidence, which the church was responsible for. In the medieval period, the church made dissections and vivisections illegal due to the belief that the body must be buried whole to ensure that the soul would go to heaven. Dissection, cutting people open; vivisection, cutting animals open. This meant that physicians were not able to have the opportunity to truly understand the body and discredit the ideas put forward by Galen. Evidence done, explain. Therefore, change in care and treatment might have been possible had it not been for the limitations placed by the church. Once again, linking the evidence to the point, to the statement. Thus, the church's influence over physicians' abilities to truly understand the human body meant that change was near impossible. Once again, mini conclusion at the end. In summary, due to the church's overt control over a number of different aspects of society, in treatment and care, while other factors did also contribute to the limited progress in society, E.G. The importance of book learning, it was nowhere near as impactful as the role of the church. And with that, I'm done. I've probably gotten 17 marks, full marks for the essay. I've probably lost almost every single mark for spagging that, as you can see, but still probably looking at a grade 9. So once again, I agree with the statement. I've kept that at the center through this entire paragraph. I've said that some might disagree. I've provided a little counter argument, but then I sabotage it in the end. And then I go straight back to my line of argument, which is agreeing. Now, you can do this in the other way. If you were to disagree with the statement, you could go disagree, agree, disagree. But just because this was easier for me formulating evidence, I've gone this way. So in summary, commit to either agree or disagree at the very start, and commit. I can't say that enough. Commit to it. Do not go back and forth. You need to pick a side and stick to it. You will lose 3 full marks if you are sitting on a fence and going back and forth. Make sure everything you say contributes to why you agree or disagree. Do not be giving your examiner useless waffle. Make sure you include 3 point, example, explain, link, analyze paragraphs. And it might feel when you're writing this like you are over explaining. Some of the things that I was writing sound repetitive. Just go with it. It is required to make sure that you are hitting that sustained line of argument, that constant focus on the question. And with that, that is the end of this video, and hopefully you have learnt a thing or two and you are able to get as close to 20 out of 20 as possible. Thank you for watching.